All right.
We start
So,
our show.
Utsada, welcome once again to the exciting 31st episode of Hindu Lounge. Today we have finished 30 weeks and now we are on to 31st week. And for those who are there are a lot of people who join every week, but for those who are joining for the first time, let me introduce the show. Let me introduce Utsada. So this is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact, Utsada is, we should tell our viewers, is an initiative of World Hindu Council of America or VHPA. And Hindu Lounge comes live every week at 11 o'clock Eastern on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And we always talk about contemporary American Hindu issues. I am of World Hindu Council of America, and with me, as always, is Utsav Chakrabarti, who is the executive director of Hindu Pact. And our co-host who joins us every week and now is Maya Durga
Maya Durga
Chakrabarti.
Chakravarti.
And so welcome to all of you. And we have before you guide, we have an exciting show planned today. As always, we are going to talk about the Supreme Court of the United States decision on pandemic and religious freedom gathering. So we'll chat about that, and then we'll talk about the recent terror attacks in France and how it is kind of part of a global pattern that we have seen around the world. So with that, Utsada, welcome, and we are open for your opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Ajay Bhai. And
Utsada,
the
one quick remark: your video is kind of fuzzy. You may want to adjust the focus a little bit. Uh, so it's very fuzzy video for some reason. So
I
just
think I'm having some trouble with the camera today.
okay.
So if you guys can still see me, that
We can
I
see
think,
you. It's just it's fuzzy, but other than that, it's good. Go ahead.
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm having some trouble with my camera, and hopefully it will look better.
That's all right.
Yeah, I guess we had a lot of things happening this week, like any other week, I guess. But we had a Supreme Court decision which basically took down the decisions that were made by the New York state, which is led by a Democratic Party governor. Uh, for those of viewers who are not very familiar with American politics, uh, the Supreme Court basically ruled in favor of the Christian Archdiocese of Brooklyn and two Jewish Orthodox congregations. So the combination of two Jewish groups and Christian Archdiocese of Brooklyn had challenged the state's decision, Democratic governor's decision, on COVID restrictions. So they were complaining about being told that there will be limited gatherings of just 25 people during COVID spikes. And the Supreme Court decided that it will not allow these kinds of restrictions to go through. So, and the reason this is a very interesting decision is because in this decision, the newly appointed judge, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, played a key role in making the decision not go in favor of the Democratic Party governor's uh, you know, earlier decisions regarding the COVID restrictions. So conservatives, Republicans are feeling and are probably right in feeling that they had a victory in the Supreme Court, which they were expecting. So this is new and interesting because this sets the tone for a lot of other political decisions getting challenged in the court systems of America. And this will also be a marker of the appointments that were made during President Donald Trump's tenure during the last 4 years.
How does this impact in one way or the other Hindus in America?
Well, Hindu temples in America are likely going to benefit from it, even though it may be a little late for the Hindus in terms of the practical outcomes on the ground, because Hindus just had a month and a half of festival season of the Deepavali, Dashera, Durga Puja. We just finished our festival season. for the year. So if this decision had come earlier, then Hindu temples would have been able to actually have congregations that would have been larger in numbers. But I mean, what I have seen with most Hindu community temples is that they're very, very law abiding, and they are very careful about, um, about breaking the rules or even pushing efforts to break the rules. So I think they're both good and bad effects of this, in my opinion.
So that's interesting because in UK, the Hindu community was very, vocal about the need to celebrate the festivals, but in the US, the Hindu community was not. And I think it's just the Hindu community in US is generally a bit more apathetic, I would say. What do you think?
Well, the Hindu community in America is a far less concentrated community. The community, because the nature of the country itself is so big, that the Hindu communities in America are spread out and are much thinner as percentage of the population compared to UK, where it's a small place and there's a large Hindu community in UK to begin with. So they are more assertive. They have been there longer historically, and they are also politically more entrenched in the mainstream politics of United Kingdom. So I guess their socio-political footprint is far more assertive than in America. In America, Hindus are, most Hindus are immigrants. Number one, they are new immigrants. So most of them have been in America in the last 30 years. Prior to that, the Hindu community used to be very small. And because America has a much more stronger Christian identity compared to Europe, uh, the Hindu community was far more docile and was, by nature, Hindus try to fit in and are much less assertive socially and politically. So that's the nature of Hindus. That's the nature of the religion. It's very diverse and very less, doesn't have that aggressive posture globally.
Yeah, I think I look back and I see that there were we had a pretty much a summer of protests in America, and you know I think yeah, I agree that the protests were outdoor and the chance of transmission is less outdoor, but a lot of the thick dense crowds there, a lot of people in small area, and I didn't see big move in banning. And I completely understand the pandemic. I completely understand the need for social distancing, and I completely understand that these are unusual times and people should look at the larger health issues and larger issues of public health in terms of not just not being infected themselves but also infecting other people and not putting the strain on the healthcare system and everything else. And I just thought it was kind of unusual that there were a lot of restrictions being put on the religious gatherings that were not put on the political gatherings. And again, I don't mean to isolate one party or the other or one group protesting versus other, but in general, I think there was a much more lenient view on political gathering than there was on the religious gathering. And as a faith-based organization that we are, I found that kind of curious as to why the restrictions were limited more to religious gatherings and not as much to not as much to all the gatherings, including the political gatherings and other things that happened during the summer.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, having, as you said, there is a distinction between indoor gathering and outdoor gathering. For having known that, uh, obviously outdoor gatherings are less supposed to be less pervasive in terms of the spread of the disease. Indoor gatherings are far more dangerous. But having said that, there was obviously a double standard, and we all saw how the politics happened and panned out in the last 6 to 8 months in America. And yeah, I mean, the gathering that was there to protest Trump was far less, uh, was considered far less dangerous for COVID than the gathering that was there in support of Trump. So there were double standards, but at the same time, we have to acknowledge that indoor gatherings, especially religious indoor gatherings like church gatherings where they sing and you know, they I mean, singing makes it difficult to have, so face covering and all those things. So I think there are points to both sides, and there are really valid points. But at the same times, we are aware of the double standards sometimes.
Yeah, and so I think I I come back to the Hindu part of it, and I think one of the things that at least surfaced to my mind is that we Hindu community now has substantial number of lawyers, substantial number of political advocates, political activists. They are at the federal level, they're at the central level, they're at the local level, and they're all mainstream, mainstream legal experts, mainstream legal activists in some cases. There are people who are Hindus whose names have been, or Hindu people with Hindu names at least, whose names have been proposed to the Supreme Court. Uh, and yet, I think Hindu community has not been successful in having lawyers who are advocates for Hindu issues in American legal system. So we don't really have, we don't really have Hindu legal activists that the community activists that other faiths have, and that kind of as a contrast kind of stands out. And I think one of the other reasons why we were not able to surface Diwali, for example, is because we don't really have lawyers in the community who take up Hindu issues. Again, it's evolution of a community. We are all gaining experiences in various walks of lives and progressing in public service, but this is a glaring hole or gap, just as really the advocacy on Capitol Hill is in many ways a gap. I mean, I know that there are a lot of organizations and Hindu organizations who are active in Capitol Hill, but nearly not as many as the size and the Hindu community now, which is the fourth largest religious community in America, or the clout, the financial clout that Hindus in America have, is certainly not representative of that. We lost your sound, Rutsada.
Well, the
Yeah,
thing is,
go
you are absolutely right. I can be more critical and add many points to it, and about the reasons why that is not the case, why Hindu community doesn't have a good set of lawyers to vouch on behalf of the community, even though Hindu communities have Hindus who are lots of Hindus are lawyers, and there are tons of them who are out there in the field of practicing law. The reason is very simple: there is no money in it. Most of the activism, advocacy, and whatever work that is done on behalf of the Hindu community is done as a form of seva by most members of the community. Very little professionally funded efforts are run in America, and that has its benefits. That has its positives. But in a country like America, where it's a capitalist country, it's a country where everything is done by professionals, there are really serious setbacks when your entire advocacy and activism efforts are managed by people who are doing it as seva. And what you see and what you just pointed out about the Hindu community not having professional lawyers to vouch for the community is a perfect example of that. And the same at the Capitol Hill. Hindus always love to complain. Those Hindus who are conscious and are aware about it, they complain, and they narrate stories of not having been able to get their voice out there. But at the same time, don't put their money where the mouth is, and so we end up with ad hoc activism,
So
and
that's
that's about the
partly
best we
true,
can
right?
get.
I mean, I take your word, but I think I want to, I agree with you, but I don't agree with you 100%. The reason I say that is because there is a lot of Hindu, quote unquote, Hindu money flowing into the political system. It is not that Hindus are not donating for political causes. Okay, the Hindus are donating for political causes. The return on investment is quite questionable. It is not that Hindus are not dedicating their lives to public services. They are. I know people who are Hindus and who are lawyers from top law schools, whether it's Harvard or Yale or George Washington or whatever the top law schools are. They've graduated from these top law schools and they're dedicating their lives to public services. But it's just not for the Hindu cause. So there is Hindu money coming in. There are lawyers. I don't think they've come together, and that is a problem. So I mean,
That is the point I'm making, Ajay bhai. I mean, we are not
why is
saying.
that? Why is that there is? So it's not, we are not lacking money. It's not a question of money, because if you look at aggregate spend of Hindus in the last election cycle, whether it's Hindu political action committees or half a dozen of them, whether they're all the other sweat equity, even forget the sweat equity, but just the actual cash. There was one news item which said that the primarily Hindu Americans, they said it Indian Americans, or primarily Hindu Americans in one event raised $3.5 million for Biden campaign. And there were other things that similarly on the Republican side. So, tons of money was, Hindus have donated a lot of money for political causes, thinking that they are going to further the Hindu cause. So it is not that they are expecting seva, it is they are donating money for political cause. It is the
No, no.
output that is questionable, because it's not
So
bringing
Ajay bhai, let
together.
me distinguish between what you just. I agree with you.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But what you are saying is not very different from what I am pointing out.
Okay.
That's why I very clearly said the Hindu advocacy and Hindu activism is considered seva, not advocacy and activism. I know tons of Hindus who are working for political parties professionally, but they don't do it for Hindu causes because Hindu causes are considered to be seva and are to be done free. And the psychology of the community, and I'm generalizing, obviously there are individuals who put their money where their mouth is, no doubt about that. But the larger psychology of the Hindu community that is conscious in the form of activism and advocacy is that this is seva. This is to be, there needs to be no funding or professional effort in this direction. And again, I'm generalizing. Obviously, there are individuals who.
But how does it work? Because I'm telling you that you take all the political action committees that have Hindu in their name, and you see the amount of money they raised, and the amount of money they gave out. So it is, I don't see that they're expecting seva. They are actually putting money where their mouth is. I'm just questioning the way, the execution part of it and the return on investment part of it. Why are they not, for example, if let's
For
say,
example, the Hindu group, you said that the name Hindu is the group that raised $3.5 million. That has nothing to do with Hindus.
okay, let's go to some of the other groups that have actually, and without naming names, and because we don't want to single anyone out. This is a larger community problem, so I don't want to name any group. But there's a group in California, there's a group in Texas, there are a couple of groups in California, there's a group in DC, there are a group in Chicago. These are all Hindu political action committees, right? They collectively raised millions of dollars in the last election cycle. The question is, and they actually spent the millions of dollars they raised. The question is, if this, it would have taken probably a small fraction, maybe 20% of what they raised, to actually convert it to a legal fund of some kind to sustain the activity. Why did they? Are they doing it? If they're not doing it, why are they not doing it? Because all these groups collectively, the ones that I kind of mentioned, in general terms, because I don't want to take names here, collectively probably raised $5-10 million. If they take 1 million out of it, they would have funded about 5 or 6 lawyers in Washington DC. I mean, I'm not saying they pooled their money, they become one organization. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying out of which a couple of organizations would have thought, I raised $3 million. Let me carve out $300,000, 10%, and hire a lawyer or two in DC as advocates so that we can make impact in Washington DC in a long, sustained manner. So that's what I was trying to say. That it's not a question of having money. It's not a question of seva expectation. There is money flowing in, and we also know that there are lawyers there. So that I have a view on this. I think it is not because there is no money. I don't think it is because of seva. I think the real reason is that the kind of lawyers that are coming out, Hindu lawyers or lawyers with Hindu name that are coming out, don't want to be associated with Hindu cause. It is not a question of money. It's not a question of seva. I want you to react to that, because the lawyers who are coming out, they would work for any cause as long as it doesn't have word Hindu in it. And that is a community failure on our part, that we have not made the word Hindu or Hindu cause cool or important or critical, whichever way you want to look at it, for people to work on it.
No, I agree with you on that. And as I said, I believe that what you're describing is part of the problem that I'm talking about. So if I dissect what you said, Hindu cause is not cool. Hindu cause, the lawyers don't want to take up concerns that Hindu communities have, because the reason, all of these reasons that you just mentioned, is because the community has not prioritized its issues. The community, so to the Hindu community, I mean, as somebody who lives in DC, the community is extremely happy to be able to have a Diwali at the Capitol Hill. The community doesn't give any more thought. And when I say community, I'm not blaming anybody here. I'm part of it. So,
Yeah.
I'm blaming myself. It's not finger pointing at anybody. It's finger pointing at myself as well.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that the community has not prioritized issues that are relevant to the community now and will be relevant 50 years from now. The community looks at things from 6 months perspective. Let's have the Deepavali celebrations at the Capitol Hill. What are after that? Nothing. We'll just have another Deepavali next year. What happens in between? We don't know. So that's the approach. And that's why you don't have real solid efforts being made to build up the socio-political nature of the community in America. Now, I must say, this is not something old. One of the few communities in America that had a footprint in Washington, D.C. as early as 1920s. Maharshi Yoganand, Swami Yoganand,
Yeah.
was invited at the White House as a Hindu in the 1920s.
Yeah.
What footprint has that to an Islamic group, for example, or compare that? I mean, even Jews did not have that much footprint. I mean, they had a little, but even Abrahamic systems, who are far more acceptable in the socio-political structure of America, did not have as much footprint as we had in the 1920s. We started at least. But from there, we we lose everything in 20 years. Then some new leader comes and builds it, again loses it, again builds it. So from Swami Yoganand to Maharshi Mahesh Yogi to Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, it's a cycle of reinventing the wheel, where we are not able to cross a threshold because we lack as a community the ability to have generational memory and generational geopolitical initiative.
Yeah, so I hear you. I hear you. But I think one thing that is in our hands very easily, and we have not done, is making Hindu advocacy, Hindu activism cool, and cool enough for the next generation Hindus, the Hindu youth who are going to college today, to dedicate their lives to. Because I told you that there's so many Hindu kids who have gone to college, who are going to college right now, and Hindu youth who have graduated and who have gotten law degrees. They're working for public advocacy for some cause or the other. We have not made our cause a need of the hour.
Let me put it
That is the
more plainly for everybody to understand, instead of me going around beating the bush. Let's Hindus have their own George Soros, and you will see how cool it becomes for the next
Yeah,
generation.
but so that there is money. I'm telling you, there is money. There's no lack of money. There is a lack of attraction to the cause. And that happens generally when the community really sees no need for this activism. And I think that is to their own, to their own detriment, that the Hindu community youth don't see that Hindu cause is worth advocating. We can go
I
on.
think I think the Armenian community puts far more money into their advocacy and activism than the Hindu community, which is twice, probably 10 times larger in number, and probably equally as rich, if not more.
So,
So
so
I
this is
just wanted to bring a perspective. The Hindus love to bring the Jewish American perspective and the Muslim American perspective in terms of scale and volume. Or I just wanted to compare it to a smaller community to show the mirror. That's
Yeah,
all.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, they're also fighting a war, so that's a need of the hour, and that's what I go back to my argument that there has to be a need of the hour for community to put money in it. If Armenian community was not facing Azerbaijan or Turkey, they would probably not be putting as much money in advocacy. But let me get this out, Utsada, one second. I think this is a really great discussion. I really wish that our viewers actually call and participate in this. I know that a lot of people are listening online because I've seen a lot of comments online. But I wish that people actually call and participate and discuss this with us, because I think this is certainly something that we would like to hear everyone's view on. And please, dial in. We have posted the dial-in numbers. Be part of the discussion. We love to hear your views on Hindu Lounge. So if you're just tuning in, this is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact, which is the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Collective, an initiative of World Hindu Council of America, VHPA. And we come live every week, 11 o'clock Eastern, on all streaming platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And this is Ajay Shah with Utsav Chakrabarti from Hindu Pact. So, Utsada, I think this is a great discussion. And it was spontaneous. We didn't really plan on this. And I think those are the best kind of discussions, because I think we are trying to achieve the same goal, but we are coming at it from different directions. I think that makes it all the more exciting and interesting conversation. So, any final words before we go to the before we go to the next topic?
No, I think we both agree and we both converge on one issue and one point, and that is there is an absolute need for Hindu advocacy and Hindu outreach and activism in America. And there is an absolute need for people to understand, both Hindus and non-Hindus, to understand the generational trauma, the threat perceptions, the good and the bad that and the fears that the community faces, and that I think that's where we all agree on that. How we achieve that, how we create the awareness, how we achieve our rights, is what we are discussing here.
I agree. So that I want to pivot to our next topic, and I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to spring a surprise on you because you haven't seen this slide that I created, and I put it in our show prep slide deck, and I want to get your view on it. So this is something that came out, I think, last night or maybe a day ago. And I think this is something that very consistent with the topic that we are going to talk about France, right? So, but let me start with this and get your view, and then we'll take it and then we'll go from there. Okay. So that this and I know that you're kind of working on this and a similar initiative. So maybe we'll do this before we go to the French thing. So this Utsavda, I don't know if you can see my screen. But this is a list. This is actually, this is an older version. I have a 2020 version also. So why don't we continue on the French topic while I get the 2020 version of this, of the global terrorism ranking. It just came out yesterday, actually, for 2020. So I want to bring that up, and I want to get your view on that. So, but this was from by the way, this was from Economic Times newspaper in India. But as I said, like, let me bring that up. And while I bring that up, uh, actually, here it is. I don't even have to wait that long. See, we do things in real time here. So let me share my screen and see, get your view on it, because I know that you're also you're going to talk about you're also going to talk about terrorism related essay competition that is happening this week. So I think there's a useful thing to talk about, and this sets kind of stage for this. So this is from a reputable newspaper from India. It's Money Control. It's a financial website and newspaper. And this is a global. So this is they have a report from Global Terrorism Index 2020 report by Institute for Economics and Peace. And India is ranked eighth in this index as a measure, in an index that measures the impact of terrorism. Now, this is not a good company to be in when you have, number one country as Afghanistan, and So let me see if I can make it a little bigger. It's kind of hard to do that, but let me at least blow this screen up and see if everyone can see it better.
I can see it. I think people can see it. I think it's a, you,
So it's kind of an interesting index. As you can see, India is Afghanistan, Iraq, Nigeria, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, and India. Uh, and if you look at, I hate the word South Asia, as you know, my aversion towards South Asia. There is no such thing as South Asia, but there is something called Indian subcontinent. But you can see that uh, Indian subcontinent has the highest, is the region affected the most, but that's mostly because of Afghanistan, right? So the scoring mechanism has a lot of criteria. We don't need to go into it. But if you go down, the overall terrorism has, economic impact of terrorism has gone down, but the one that really is concerning to me, at least, if you look at the number of incidents, right? I This graph is somewhat misleading, because really, after Afghanistan, the country most impacted by terrorism is actually Yemen and India, because there are two incidents more in Yemen than in India. But if you look at this, India is one of the most impacted countries on terrorism. And if you look at the number of deaths in India, it is a number that is lower, but it's still substantial. It's 277. When we look at France, there were maybe four in a year, and entire global community is concerned about it. But there are 277 terrorism-related incidents in deaths in India, and people don't care. So I want you to comment on these statistics, and then talk about the essay competition that you were going to talk about, and we'll go back to France after that. The reason for doing this before the France one is so that it puts the issue in France in perspective, at least for Hindus whose dharma bhumi, not their current state of place of residence, but dharma bhumi is India.
so I think what you brought up is, I think most people, I thought most people knew that, but it's something that is extremely relevant to bring perspective to where many Hindu Americans come from. And I think younger Hindu Americans who are born and brought up in this country, who, often are not aware of the historical trauma and the current trauma that the Hindu community goes through and has gone through. Uh, this should be a good marker for those people to understand where people like me or many other people who talk about the threats coming out of global terrorism, where we are coming from and what it means to us anywhere in the world. So I think this is a good show of, as a community, Hindus, most of whom live in India, uh, are under attack. And you, if your country, or where your main population stays, is in the top 10 targeted countries globally on the issue of terrorism, you need to wake up. And that's true for Indians, as well as that's true for Hindus in living, growing, living and thriving in other parts of the world, because they are part of the population that is going to be targeted and that is being targeted.
So that it, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but first of all, I'm non-violent, so no, any beating is not good. But just as a phrase, uh, I do want to say one thing, and that is, here is a cause. Here is a cause that Hindu youth, current Hindu students in America can rally behind, but the Hindu leaders in America have not made this cause important enough in their minds. And maybe that is the reason why they've not gravitated towards taking up this cause at various levels. I think far too much, far too distant a cause, but the work for the community, Hindu community in America, is to make this cause important enough so that there is awareness and there is advocacy in this area. And I want to connect it to something that you are doing, which I think will help. So, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share the screen to that?
I think you can continue since you are already sharing the screen. You can continue to go to the slide, and I wanted to talk about it because this is a perfect segue to that topic, and I
Right.
think it's important that we connect with that topic.
Yeah, and that's the. So, tell us about this event.
So there is a pretty well known. I hope it's well known by now. If it is not, then let me plug it. There's a website called Fair Observer, which is an independent news and analysis portal, not very different from let's say DW or Al Jazeera but it's very neutral. It's unlike Al Jazeera, which is not very neutral. Uh, but it is a very well made, good content news portal, news and analysis portal called Fair Observer. And they came up with something very interesting. The topic they chose for an essay competition, and later on it's also going to be an art, digital art competition. It's coming up in the next week or so. The topic is terrorism in the 21st century: causes, drivers, and solution. And this competition is for the people who are between the age group of 16 to 30, open to anybody and everybody. I mean, it's not limited to Hindus. Just want to be clear, underline it, that it's for everybody, because we are all victims and targets of it. And you can go to the fair, the link is tinyurl.com FOSA, and that's where you can register. That's where you can get more information. There's a lot of information on how the essay should be written. It's a 1,500 word essay, and my daughter is already beginning to write about it.
I saw her carrying up some papers. I think I don't know if she's writing or she's protesting. Already starting.
Well, she also came here with her toy guitar. So
Oh, so she's going
I'm
to play a song.
I'm very I'm not sure which direction she's going to go to, whether it's going to be the digital art part or music or the essay.
She
But
can do it all.
this competition is important, and the date from which the entries opened was from 26th of November, which was a couple of days ago, and the entries are open until January 10th. So we have a lot of time. People who have kids in the age group of 16 to 30, who either are in high school, colleges, or young professionals, I would encourage all of them to join in this essay competition. Go visit the link, register. There's a registration link so that you can put in your name and submission. You can submit later. Just put in your name and all the details, email addresses. And the judges are Glenn Carley, who is a former CIA analyst; Ian McCready, who is a foreign ministry official from the United Kingdom, from England; and Ishtiaq Ahmed. He's a very well-known scholar from Stockholm University, grew up in Pakistan. So, as you can see, it's a very neutral, non-biased, really an intellectual and creative exercise where ideas and people with those ideas are going to be looked at. And there is about $2,000 worth of prize money. So it's not small. $2,000 is a big number for 1,500 words of essay writing. And so I just wanted to bring it out there. And, terrorism in the 21st century: causes, drivers, and solutions. That's a topic that's very relevant for the next 100 years. And I would want everybody in our community and everybody else who is listening to put it out in your school system, put it to your school boards. So if you want to talk about it more and want to know more details, please get in touch with me, Utsav Chakrabarti, or send a message to Ajay Bhai, or just leave a message in our messaging board, and we will get in touch with you. But this is a wonderful idea to bring up new minds and new ideas, and find talent and bring solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that this is being done, and I also am impressed by the judges that you have, which which is quite neutral, and it gives and I think I think people need to know in that there is that the global terrorism has many victims, and unless the peace-loving community in the world comes together, there are more and more incidents like the ones in Mumbai a few years ago, or the ones in France are likely to happen. Vasudha, you had this one particular slide that you wanted to talk about to put this essay competition in perspective. And this is a news item that came out this week. So tell us about this.
So, 26th November, 12 years ago, which is when the date for the essay competition opened up its entries. It's going to go up till January 10th, so we have a lot of time. This is a message from the State Department's Rewards for Justice program, the United States State Department's Rewards for Justice program, and they just announced on the 27th that they put a $5 million reward money for, I would say, an individual who works for a terrorist organization called Lashkar-e-Toiba, a radical jihadist Islamist group based out of Pakistan. So, 12 years on, justice still needs to be brought, and this is the kind of news items that American Hindus should share and should dig into to understand what all happens. I know a lot of people, young people, don't actually know what happened on 26th November 2008 in Mumbai, or for that matter, the previous 15 years of terrorism that were targeted against people of India in Mumbai. Mumbai has faced some of the worst terrorist attacks in the world. In my opinion, I think I would say it is one of the world's only big metropolitan cities that has had so many attacks. And I mean, obviously, New York, 9/11, one of the worst in modern history. But Mumbai comes pretty close because they have faced severe series of attacks over the last 25 years, thousands of people killed. So this is a wonderful effort from the State Department, and I hope American presidents and State departments keep working on this. I mean, as the new president comes, I hope they will pursue this and follow up.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think this is something that is absolutely a critical for world peace and critical for peace-loving people in the world. People should not have when they go out to grocery shopping or they sit in a restaurant or they're taking a train to go to work or go home from work. They should not be worried about terrorists blowing up, the train or the railway station or the hotel or the restaurant or the hotel or the or the place of work. Uh, I'm glad that this reward has been put out. I also think that there are states that sponsor terrorism, and global community would have to the peace loving global community would have to realize that the soft approach towards the terror sponsoring states cannot be tolerated forever, because it really the kind of impact that 9/11 in America had, or the 26/11 you know terror attack by 20 intruders in Mumbai had. These incidents cannot repeat. And so that while we say that, right, we still see that you go to a country like France, and there are a significant amount. There is a terrorism on the rise, and uh, uh, President Emmanuel Macron, who came to power as pretty much a liberal at one time, right? I mean, they talked about people in the global community. I remember the journalists in India, the journalists around the world were leftist and socialist and communist. They all said that this is how everyone should emulate President Macron, and now he has become a pariah. So let me share the screen and uh, tell me, why did you pick this image and why did you pick this particular title for the image?
Well, I just wanted to point out the irony of the image. in the background, it says liberty, equality, and fraternity in French, which is the values for which the French stand for, which is the value that modern Western societies with democracies, thriving democracies.
And this is the underpinning of the French Revolution, right?
That's what I was going towards. Like,
Yeah.
liberty, equality, and fraternity was the slogan that drove the French Revolution, that brought modern consciousness free from Christian, extremism into politics in the West. So it is these three words that separated the Christian church from the politics of the West and made Western societies democratic and liberal. That's the irony here. And Macron is really trying to stand by those values. The funny part here is that the threat to those values comes from what many liberals in the West, and I put quotes in the liberals here because American liberals sometimes are not that liberal. Uh, so the biggest threat to this is coming from Islam. And I'm not using the word radical Islam here. I'm actually using the word Islam here, and we can have a debate on that. Uh, Macron has come out and said, look, there is a charter of values by which we live, and we have worked very hard and lost hundreds and thousands of lives, including fought the Second World War against Hitler, to actually lost millions of lives to protect these values. And these are the values which are part of our charter of republics. And you cannot threaten us. We will make rules to contain you and counter you. And he said this to the Muslims in France and Europe. And that just put the liberals, quote unquote liberals again, in the West in a tizzy. Now, so that's the irony of the whole situation. And this is a test for liberals. Those who call themselves liberal in Western societies, including those who are Hindus, this is a test whether you stand up to Islam. Again, I'm not using the word radical Islam because at a fundamental theological level, this is a contradictory struggle of ideas.
So I will take an issue to that, and I'll just say that take to the radical Islam, because I think there is room within Hindu faith and within other faiths that where if there are reasonable people who follow Islam, we want to come together with them and we want to find common grounds with them. And I think our parent organization, World Hindu Council of America, our sister organizations have done quite a bit of work to identify and work with people who would bring about. So I think what is more important is actually bringing about the reforms that are needed in Islam, or for that matter, any faith, but especially in this case, we're talking about Islam, to bring Islam to live peacefully with other faiths. And I think
I agree with you, Ajay bhai. You just made my point. What I'm saying is
your
there are individuals.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
There are millions of people out there who could, Muslim or anybody, who are perfectly rational and who are as much victims of this kind of ideology as the non-Muslim community. So I completely agree with you, but I still stand by my original point. When I say Islam and not radical Islam, I'm actually pointing out to the core ideas that are in contradiction to the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity.
I think
I'm not saying individuals are good or bad. Individuals are good or bad everywhere.
Look, I mean, people can, there are many interpretations of all religions. And I'm sure that, the radicals in Islam have taken one view of their scripture and the non-radicals are probably a different view. And I don't know if that is the point of debate that we need to have, but I think that this is an issue that the Muslim community globally and in each country has to come to terms with and resolve, because it is to their advantage. If they want to peacefully coexist with other faiths, other communities, it is to their advantage that they come to terms with the fact that most of the world is liberal. In fact, even the countries like Saudi Arabia have realized that the kind of restrictions at the social level that they had and dealing with other religions they had was something that was not sustainable and is not long term good for their or benefit to them. That is why Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and all of them are now making peace with Israel. And this is why they are now having multiple conversations with countries like India, who are not primarily Muslim countries. I think there's a realization within these countries that there has to be a more comprehensive liberal view, and I use the word liberal in quotes. And I think they're working on resolving the issue within the Muslim community. And I want to wait and watch and see where this leads. Turkey obviously tried it for 100 years before Erdogan came. It was Turkey had progressed in the path of living peacefully with non-Muslim countries after centuries of aggressive behavior around the world. So I think there is room. Let's be hopeful. Uh, as you know, I'm eternally optimistic. So uh, anyway, I give you the last word on this.
My point, Ajay Bhai, is that I distinguish between ideas and individuals. I criticize ideas, not by qualifying them with words like radical. There is a place for that. But where there is criticism of actual original ideas, I will be critical of them and not add smaller, qualifiers like radical or extremist or something in front of it. I do not criticize individuals. I believe there are good and bad individuals everywhere, including in the Muslim community. And so when I'm critical of Islam, and not radical Islam specifically, but basic Islam, I'm critical of the idea and the theology behind it, not of any individual. And that's what I wanted to qualify my last phrase, my finishing point here with. But I agree with you. I completely agree that there is obviously a lot of room for discussion, a lot of room for debate, which is what the world is doing nowadays. But it's good to have this discussion, because at some point we have to, take the 80-pound gorilla in the room by its tiny finger somewhere.
And so that the essay competition that you're doing with someone who grew up a Muslim in Pakistan as a judge, kind of proves the point that there is room for people who are against terrorism, who are against extremism, to come together. I think that gives me hope.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean, that is one of the reasons why we picked the judges that were picked by this organization, and I was a part of the discussion, because, as you said, and as I fully agree with, there are people in every community that understand the nature of the beast, and are very thoughtful and very logically analytic about it.
yeah. So then let me, as we go towards the end, two of the more exciting segments are coming up. So I want to talk a little bit about our some of the one of the activities of Hindu Pact. As you know, Hindu Pact started about 4 or 5 months ago, and Hindu Pact is now, as you have mentioned multiple times, that real advocacy needs real money. We want to have presence in Washington D.C. We want to build a grassroots movement from scratch in America, in every single community in America, every single state, every single city, every single rural area. We want to build the Hindu community, Hindu advocacy movement. And for the first time in 6 months of our existence, now that we have done 30 shows, we're a little bit more than 6 months into it, 7 months into it, we are launching our first online fundraising gala. And the details are still being worked out, and we are going to give more and more details as time comes. But let me share the screen with our viewers and with you, so that to show you what is coming up. So the theme of the gala is Hindu advocacy in America towards a strong American Hindu voice in public square. It is on December 19th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and uh, and you can and it will be live on all the platforms that we are currently live on, which is on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter and Periscope. So please save the date. Please come on December 19th. We are still working out details about the entertainment program and participants and guests and all that. But suffice it to know that we will have really good guests, not just from US. We're trying to get Hindu advocates from other Western countries as well, like Canada, from UK, so that this becomes a substantial gala. So I want to, with that, I want to stop the share here and give you an opportunity to give a word or two on this. So please go ahead.
No, this is very exciting. I think Hindu Pact is beginning to come up to be a very logical, very well timed, much needed initiative. And I think hopefully people who are listening to us will come and donate, because the moment Hindu Pact gets monetized, many of the issues that we are discussing here will actually have real voice in out there. So it's very important for us to make sure that Hindu Pact is monetized and it is doesn't remain on in the confines of the YouTube universe or the Facebook universe. And that is very important for us. And I hope people join this. People can donate to Hindu Pact. And this is important for Hindu Pact to operationalize, as we may want to put it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Utsoda. So with that, Utsoda, the final two segments of our show, and let me bring up this slide for Hindu Seva Act of the Week. And again, Utsoda, this. So first, I want to say preface this by saying that this week was a Thanksgiving week, and we should have, we, last week. So we didn't get a chance to say this last week, but I want to take this moment out and say, you know, thank you to all the people as part of Thanksgiving, to our friends, to our family, to the people who have been listening to us for the last 30 weeks. I want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts to people who have been helpful to us in this endeavor. And I also want to say that this is a moment where all of us who live in America reflect on the fact that we are immigrants to this land, and the Native Americans have I want to say that the Native Americans have suffered quite a bit over the last few centuries, as immigrants have come to America. And I think I want to just say that while a lot of things were, Hindus were not, part of the, part of the sufferings that they have gone through, I still think that we are the beneficiaries in many ways of the sufferings that they have endured through this, they have endured just by being immigrants to this land that they called home for thousands of years. So I want to, from the bottom of our hearts, as Hindus, as the representatives of the Hindu community, I want to say thank you to them, to the Native Americans. And I also want to say thank you to all the people who immigrated before us and created a society where the rest of us kind of just immigrated and took advantage of. So I think it is, in a larger societal context, from the Hindu perspective, there is a lot to be thankful for. Uh, Quick comments before we go to the Seva Act of the Week.
Yeah, I think Native Americans are. I mean, we are connected through history. We are connected through our social practices. Our dharmic traditions have go back thousands of years. For whatever reason, ignorance or fate, they were also called Indians by the colonizers who didn't know any better. Uh, and so we thank them for this, for all they gave to America and to the world, because it's their unfortunate tragedy that their civilization went through that brought us, that eventually made it better for many of us. And the Europeans obviously, the colonizers obviously were wrong in what they did, but the Native Americans, and more importantly, one of them, I was having this discussion with on the topic of terrorism as well. The Native Americans never terrorized, never took to terrorism as a civilizational response to what happened to them. And I think that the dharmic values that they came from is has something to do with it. And that's why it's important for us to take up their voice. We are in this together, and what I would like to
And
say.
I also want to, at the same time, I also want to say that, look, we have also benefited from people who came from Europe. A lot of them came who fled. They were not. They were, they came as people who were being persecuted in Europe, and they built a society, and we benefit from them that as well. So, I think as much as we mentioned about the fact that India has gone through really tough time for last 1,000 years, minus the last 50, but for 1,000 years, we also want to acknowledge the fact that we also, for economic or other reasons, we migrated to US, and we are beneficiaries as well of other people's work. And so we have, all around a lot to think about, and especially in these COVID times, which has given us all a time to kind of reflect on, our contributions to society, how we live together, how we coexist, all of that. So that along the same lines, our Hindu Seva Act of the week is actually helping people who are the neediest in India, our Dharma Bhumi. We have Seva in America as a project, and we have some activities of Seva that are, we do in India. And one of our, uh, prime programs that we have for service or seva in India is Support a Child. We have mentioned this program multiple times. We support over 3,000 students, kids in India every year, and uh, and that number is growing. It's expected to cross 3,500 this year. And this particular initiative of VHPA, World Hindu Council of America, is having a fundraising gala on December 5th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And this is, again, it's online. And this time, they have had three galas before, but this time is very interesting. It's a gala where, they've done a lot of galas with different entertainment programs like dance and music and other things. This is a more educational gala. And this time they're going to talk about Hindus of Kerala, past, present, and future. So it's a really good educational program. And it is going to, I think they've done four actually galas. They had a youth gala also recently. So this one is really very current, very topical. They're going to talk about the Hindus in Kerala. And, people from Kerala have named their state God's own country. And let's find out from this gala how Hindus are doing in God's own country. Any comments on that, Sudha, before we go to the most anticipated segment of the show, the Hindu Hater of the Week? Or sorry, I shouldn't say that. We renamed it to Hinduphobe of the Week. So before we go to Hinduphobe of the Week, any comments on the support Kerala Hindus of Kerala?
Well, I look forward to it, Ajay bhai, and I think I will I will encourage people to join it to understand what this event is all about, and that will probably open up their minds to a lot of other thoughts. So yeah, I would want everybody to join this program.
Okay, thank you. And so the Hindu phobe of the week. Now we this is a person, and this is a person who goes to a mandir, okay, who goes to a mandir and takes abuses all the murtis, abuses the Shivlinga, and takes a video and live streams it on Facebook. It abuses the sculpture, the murtis, and in obscene languages. And when the archakas or the priests and other devotees started, told him not to do it, he started abusing them. Eventually, he was arrested and all that. But this is happening in Puducherry, which some people know as Pondicherry, and this is a 90% Hindu, 90% Hindu state or union territory, and this is happening. So, why do you think? What motivates? What drives someone to do this? I mean, this person absolutely despises Hindus. he is deserving of, Hinduphobe of the week that we have assigned him. But I want to understand from you, what motivates this person?
The ideas that motivate this person are the same ideas that motivates Macron to talk about liberty, equality, and fraternity. Let me put it as simple as that.
No, but I mean, look, I mean, that I can you can talk in terms of in global terms like that, but supposedly this is a person who has lived among Hindus and his family has lived among probably his family was probably Hindu at one point.
That
Um,
is the point. That
and so what instead of connecting with his past, instead of connecting with the sufferings that his family went through, he is now become an abuser of Hindus.
that's I mean, I just wanted to encourage everybody to read V.S. Naipaul's book, Among the Believers. That is the story of every person in Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan, who and in modern times Bangladesh, who is a Muslim. They all had Hindu ancestors, and many of them come from this frame of mind. V.S. Naipaul has actually, written. For those who don't know V.S. Naipaul, he's one of the Hindu writers of the 20th century who received a Nobel Prize for his work, not from India but from the Caribbeans, but a Hindu nevertheless. And yeah, this is the story of most people in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Indonesia who had Hindu ancestors, and they hate Hindu dharma because now they believe and want to hold the flag of an ideological system that hates Hindu dharma. Pretty much simple. I don't know how we can look at it any differently.
Right. So that we come to an end for today's show. I think we had a really good, lively discussion today, and I want to thank everyone who tuned in and posted comments on all the different social media. I saw a lot of comments on YouTube. I saw comments on Facebook, on various places. We were live streaming on, I think, at least 4 different Facebook pages, and we were also live streaming on YouTube and Twitter. Once again, for those who just joined us, this is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pack. We come live to talk about American Hindu issues at 11 o'clock Eastern every week. And your co-hosts in this are Utsav Chakrabarti, who is the Executive Director of Hindu Pack, and I'm Ajay Shah, I'm the Executive Vice President for World Hindu Council of America, or WHPA. And with this, we say thank you, and we'll see you next week. And namaste.
Thank you and namaste, everybody.